Welcome to another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, coming to you 6 days a week as we interview whitetail experts and hear their traditions and personal stories of the hunt. Learn more about the latest gear, discover proven tips, and the latest strategies so you can make your next hunt a success. Now, here's your host, Bruce Hutchin.
Whitetail Rendezvous is pleased to announce a partnership with GoHunt.com. Who's GoHunt.com? Well, if you're a DIY hunter, you need the information at GoHunt.com/insider. Why? Because it provides 4,200 profiles, every unit, every species, and every season. Furthermore, they give in-depth analysis, interactive maps, unit access, and seasonal trends. Draw odds are very important, and they give you the most accurate information in the business. All this is available when you go to GoHunt.com/insider. Make sure you use promo code WR when you join Insider. You'll get a $50 gift card for GoHunt.com Gear Shop. Remember, when you become a member of GoHunt.com/insider, you're going to get a $50 gift card to Go Hunt Gear Shop. What's in the gear shop? The best gear that you can buy for hunting the West. All in all, if you're hunting out West in 2018, GoHunt.com/insider is where you need to be to get all the research information. When you use promo code WR, Whitetail Rendezvous receives a small commission from GoHunt.com. Hey, folks, we got a new sponsor. It's called Buckwild Coffee. What's so special about Buckwild Coffee? Well, a gazillion people go to Starbucks every day and drink coffee. Well, why shouldn't Buckwild Coffee offer you light, medium, or dark roast with free shipping? All you have to do is go to whitetailrendezvous.com, go to shop, and order your coffee, and I'll ship it out for free. Hey, thanks so much for visiting Buckwild Coffee. The best brew in the West, the best brew around the campfire, the best brew in the hunting shack, the best brew anywhere. Buckwild Coffee. Get yours today. Bruce Hutchin, your host of Whitetail Rendezvous. Surprise, surprise. You probably know my name by now. Anyway, we're heading out to actually Mason City, Iowa. We're going to meet with a man named Bob Smith. No, that's not his alias. His company's name is Big Stick Archery. And if you look around his home there in Mason City, you're going to see a lot of big bucks, and they were all taken with what I call a stick and a string, traditional archery. And that's what this episode is going to be about. It's hunting way back when, and in the warm-up, Bob and I were talking about shooting flaming arrows off the sides of a castle. What a trip that must have been. Bob, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and you go back and you read the book Shogun, and you just go back through England and Europe, and longbow archers have been part of war for a long time. I mean, Sun Tzu and all his guys, they had bows. That's what they were.
I don't know as much about it as you. It sounds like, but yes, I know that archers were kind of like the go-to guys. I mean, like they were the guys to have. I think.
Yeah, no, there wasn't any question about it because they were the long. They had rudimentary cannons, and then they had the archers, and they would just shower the sky. I mean, literally hundreds and hundreds of broadhead would come flaming, either flaming or just screaming out, and they would hurt you.
Yeah.
So and somebody had to make those bows and make those arrows, and that's what Big long way to introduce Bob Smith, Big Stick Archery, because he is a bowyer and he is a maker of bows. You can see a couple behind him, and he's going to talk to us about why he is building bows, and the other part of the show is going to be the adventure of hunting. So, Bob, I've talked long enough. Why don't you jump in and chit-chat and talk to me about being, a builder of recurves and longbows?
Sure. Should we maybe just start from the beginning there?
Sure.
See where it goes. So I grew up bow hunting, but of course, traditional thing always kind of tickled my fancy. Just seemed super cool when you would see the guys at the shoots doing that sort of thing. dad, he had grew up hunting with a recurve, had some struggles, and compounds were a pretty good idea as far as he was concerned. But eventually, about a dozen years ago, I started hunting with a recurve. Actually, his first recurve that he had hunted with when he was 12, my dad's. One thing led to another, and I started researching to build my own bows like that. And I guess eventually I just ended up dropping $1,000 and bought some cheap tools and bought some materials and built a bow in my basement. And that bow broke. And then the next one was nice. And that one shot just fine. Actually still have that one. But that was about 6 years ago. That's kind of where the bow building itself started. And then around that same time, another bow company that I was familiar with, he was planning on selling his business. So of course I put my name in the hat for that. That's the dream, is to do something that you like and not work for the factory or whatnot, which I've done plenty of. So I was not interested in that. So I was talking to him about purchasing the company from him and doing like a full-time bow building deal. And then kind of in the last minute, I decided I'd never really made any decision based off making money or being successful, and I'd rather kind of do it my own way and not have to follow this guy's kind of pre-laid, successful business that he had laid out. So I ended up backing out of that deal and went and got myself a business license to start my own business like the next day. Probably jumped the gun a little bit on that, but here we are 5, 6 years later, and it's finally starting to get a little traction and kind of really starting to like where things are heading. It was a pretty rough 2, 3, 4 years, right out the gate, but things are looking good now. So gotta be happy with that.
Now, how do people find out that you make bows?
I have only done like social media stuff to this point. So I have an Instagram page, a Facebook page. I was doing YouTube videos for a while. I don't know. I believe I've got 15, maybe almost 20, like whitetail hunts on YouTube with myself and buddies. Some other different kind of oddball hunting type videos. And that's basically it. I guess I also have a website that is www.bigstickarchery.com. But I kind of just did it all myself. I haven't really paid anyone to do any of the designing or any of the upkeep stuff. So it's just a one-man show. I do the social media and the YouTube and the videos and the bow building, and I even sew the bow stocks that I ship the bows in. And the taxes. You got to pay taxes too.
Well, you're definitely invested in your business. Now, tell me about the wood. How do you select the wood that you're gonna, laminate together to make the bow?
Sure. So I guess basically all of my bows have like a bamboo lamination, like in the middle, like a core laminate. So they'll have the bamboo on the inside of the limb, and then you could either go with like a colored glass, like a black or a brown or green glass. So then it's fairly easy as far as choosing wood because you can't see; you just see the colored glass. If you'd like, you can upgrade, and then we can put like a veneer on the limb, and then it starts getting a little bit trickier. So I basically just have like a kind of just like a general stock list. I buy most of it in Des Moines. I'll go and kind of pick out. There's a place there that has a fair amount of exotics, so I can go down and kind of pick out specific boards that have a nice grain and things like that. So the goal really is to just have contrast. So if you have maybe a wood with a lot of nice grain in it, maybe you'd want a wood that didn't have any grain, or if you had a maple riser, you might put like a different colored wood, like a purple heart. That would be a lot of contrast, if that makes sense. Turns out you can put just about any wood with any wood, and it almost always looks good. What I found, but I'm not sure. Did that answer your question at all, Bruce?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how somebody says, "Hey, I want a bow, and I want it to look pretty." And how do they pick out the wood? Is that on your website,
Sure.
or how do they do that? Because everybody's different, and they don't want just a bow looking like it was bought out of Cabela's or Bass Pro.
Right. Everybody wants it to be the prettiest bow you've ever made, which is the goal. But so a lot of times guys don't really know. Once in a while you'll have some guys that have bought a lot of bows and they know, hey, I like this wood, and this wood. Go get some and figure, like that's it. a lot of grain or maybe a lot of color contrast. And then I have pictures of, I don't know, probably almost every bow I've ever built. So if they follow my Instagram stuff or look on the website, there's a lot of different options. So usually just between looking at some pictures and kind of talking about what they might like, we can get a pretty good idea of like what direction to head as far as choosing woods and what types of woods they'd like to have in their bow.
So we got the wood picked out. Now, poundage, do I want a 40-pound bow, 50-pound bow, 60-pound bow, 30-pound bow?
Right. I think we talked about this just a little bit. I mean, it used to be like you couldn't hardly buy a bow under 60 pounds. Like in the, I think we'll say like the 60s, 70s, like it was heavy bows. Since then, there's been a big shift. I suppose all those older fellas that were shooting 70 pounds blew out their shoulders and other health problems. So now there's been a big shift so that there's a lot of guys shooting 40 pounds, 45 pounds, and they just shoot heavy arrows, and they're still able to be effective, hunting wise, and they can shoot more. They probably shoot more accurately. They stay healthier because they're not shooting as heavy of a draw weight. So a lot of times now, I mean, it's pretty. If you're getting up into the 50, 55, like 55 is getting kind of heavy. Kind of around 50 is real popular. You need it to be legal in a lot of some Western states as far as like hunting big game. So 50 is kind of upper end, and then maybe obviously if you're a smaller youth or a female, it might be more around like a 30 pounds, 25 pounds. But that's kind of, I would say majority of adults are going to shoot in that 40 to 50s, low 50s, be pretty common.
Now, how do you know the pound pull? I think that's the correct way to say it. When you build the bow, how do you gauge that? What's the magic formula?
I just basically found a chart from somebody else and took a big guess. But once you built one, you have a really good idea what the second one's going to be because you mic out all the layers of all the laminates, the thicknesses, so you have like a total overall thickness of that limb when it comes off the riser. So you can use that to judge your, determine your draw weight. So kind of just make a guess the first time, hope you're close, but after you made one, hey, this 340 stack, total thickness of 340 thousandths was 56 pounds. So you say, all right, we want to go a little lower. So roughly 10 thousandths is about 5 pounds of draw weight most of the time. And if you made the bow an inch longer or shorter, it would change about 5 pounds. So kind of once you do one, you build a second one, and then you have a really good idea of where you're going to be at as far as what thicknesses or what thickness of laminations you need to hit specific weights, if that makes sense.
Right, and the length, because the longer the bow, the softer the bow, and the shorter the bow,
right.
The heavier the bow.
Right. So after you've made a couple, like you have a really good idea of what you need to do and where you need to change or what you can change to get the specific weight. And then now it's just a matter of if a guy wants a 50-pounder, I just go and I look it up and I know that I need a 350,000, of laminations at the fade out of the riser. That should be, for a 62-inch bow, and that should give me a 50-pound bow or whatever the case may be. There's a little trial and error right off the bat. After that, pretty smooth sailing.
Now, how do you dry your wood?
Dry it?
Yeah, because it's going to be all dried, right?
Dry. I do not do any. I don't buy any wet lumber. I haven't kind of got quite to that level yet. If I was going to get into some more of like buying like a truckload of some of the really nice exotics that are a little bit lower. What would be the word for it? Little lower quantities. It's a little more common to buy like a big lot and you buy it wet and you have to dry it. Most stuff I'm buying is from somebody that's already bought it and kind of halfway milled it or whatnot, and it's dried and basically ready to use. Like I'm buying boards rather than like a tree or like a log or a stake.
Okay, but you're still going to press them. You press them yourself, right?
Right. Yeah. So then I'll take those boards and then I'll cut them down and run them through I have a drum sander, like a parallel sander with a conveyor belt that goes underneath. So I put it on a sled and then I'll run those laminations through there and you can sand them down to the thickness that I want. And then I glue those together in a bow form and cook them in a hot box. So I'll epoxy it all together, press it into the bow form, and then put it into the hot box. And then the heat cures the epoxy.
So you just cook it.
Just cook it. That's right. It's like an easy bake oven. it's a wood box with some light bulbs in it. It's really something.
Well, it is, and like we were talking in warm up, um, it's really an art form that goes back to getting people to hunt traditionally because it's different. There's no sights. Yeah, you got a quiver to carry arrows. You can have a back quiver. You can have a riser quiver. But other than that, it's all about hunting. The game and instinctive shooting. It takes a while. How long does it really take before you can be halfway accurate at 20 yards?
At 20 yards?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't even know if I'd want to answer that. I would say the better part of like 5. Well, if you were shooting instinctively, I would say at least a few years before. At least for me, it was a few years before I was comfortable at 20 yards often. Kind of what I found is it's fairly easy to hit stuff at 10 yards. So the first year, 10 yards, you can hit stuff at 10 yards, feel pretty confident. And then you take a step back and you're pretty good. And then you hit 12 yards and it just all goes out the window. Like literally one step and you go from, confident you're going to hit what you're shooting at to, you're just spraying and praying. And it kind of just progresses, So maybe after a couple of years, I was comfortable at 15, but then 16, it just all fell apart. So it's really just kind of a slow process. A lot of times, a lot of guys now are shooting more of like an aiming system. So that would definitely, give you a lot more success a lot quicker. If you were using the type of some aiming system or a reference with your arrow tip and things like that, that would make you a lot more proficient at 20 yards a lot more quick. But it was definitely going to take some time if you're doing it the instinctive route. I would say like a few years. I would guess.
Now, what kind of rest do you have? It's certainly not a fall away rest. So what kind of rest does the arrow sit on?
So I shoot off the shelf. So that just means that I just have a rug that they call it a rug that just goes on the wood. So on the window of the riser and then on the actual breast there, I just have it's actually some like industrial grade Velcro, like sticky back Velcro, and I trim it down so it's not so fluffy. So it's just kind of a tight little piece of Velcro on there, and then that's all there is. The arrow just kind of rides on that Velcro, so you're shooting it nice and low off of your hand. I guess the idea is so that when you're shooting instinctively, it's more of the like you're pointing your hand, and you want the arrow close to your hand so that it's easier for your hand-eye coordination to kind of put the arrow where you want it to go.
Now, what kind of vanes are you using?
Feathers all the way. I'm a feathers guy.
Turkey feather or crow feathers or?
I think they're all turkey feathers. Some farm-raised turkeys. I have not done any like actual get a turkey wing and then make my own feathers. I've just purchased them. Maybe one day I will get there, but right now I'm some farm-raised turkeys or whatever, and they dye them and all that good stuff. So I pretty much just get them ready to glue on the shaft. So.
Now, are you making your own cedar arrows?
I have. I shoot a lot of carbon arrows, though. It's something that I kind of like doing. I don't know. A guy's got a lot of excuses. It's not something that I've killed a few deer with cedar, and I've killed a lot more with carbons and aluminum. It's just I don't know. They're just kind of easy. I think I shot more woods when I wasn't running a business and social media and, all the other good stuff that kind of comes with that. That's one excuse anyway, but I do shoot a lot of carbon arrows.
And they're lighter, obviously, so they'll go faster. So can you get 150, 170 out of your setup?
Yeah, I would say for most people, 170s is going to be pretty typical, 180s. Some fast, but, it's just like the compound world. A guy might advertise that, it's going 220, but it's at 65 pounds with a 30-inch draw and, a 400 grain. It's a setup that nobody's ever going to actually be shooting. So there's some of that even going on in the traditional world, similar to like the modern compound situation. But even though I shoot carbon arrows, so it's a light shaft, it's pretty common to shoot like a lot of weight up front. So I have 250 grains that I shoot on the end of my arrow. So even though it's a carbon arrow, they weigh 580 grains finished. So it's still a really heavy arrow.
That's a lot of kinetic energy.
It is a lot of momentum. So it turns out
Oh yeah, for sure. Now, what the broadhead 3-blade, fixed blade?
Yep. I've shot the same Wenzel Woodman, the broadhead, I guess, that I've shot for most of my traditional history. But it's it's a fixed 3-blade, kind of a long head, so it's kind of built to penetrate because it's kind of long and narrow. But definitely a fixed blade would be the ticket. Whether it's
Yeah, 125 grain then.
No, they're 250 grain.
So you're not, but you got inserts.
Oh, right.
Right.
So I have 125 grain broadhead, and then I have 125 grain steel like adapter to glue the broadhead onto, and then I just screw that into my regular inserts.
Okay.
So my regular inserts are still just regular, gold tip 15 grain insert. So it's
Right.
basically all just the head and adapter that gets the 250.
Wow.
Easy peasy.
Yeah, pretty much. I used to
Some
shoot.
guys shoot 300, 350 grain. Like
Well,
really
slow. You got to go. You have to go heavy if you're going slow. I remember when I first started out, I used Rocky Mountain Supreme.
Here's a hot special for all Whitetail Rendezvous listeners. The Hunting Buddy app is giving away an all expenses paid free-range whitetail hunt at ABC New York Ranch this fall. You'll be hunting with NASCAR driver Spencer Boyd and the Hunting Buddy team, all the while being filmed by a professional film crew from Rush Outdoors, as seen on the Pursuit channel. To enter the contest for free, go to huntingbuddyApp.com. Click the huge Hunt Giveaway section tab and download the app. When you upgrade to the Outfitter plan, you get 30 additional giveaway entries. Hunting Buddy app is your best choice for staying safe in the woods with their patent-pending safety notification system. So Lunar information including peak game, activity times, current and future weather forecasts, land ownership, hunting waypoints, group hunting, and so much more, all for free from Hunting Buddy app. That's HUNT apostrophe N BUDDY app.
And they were 125s or something, but I shot really slow. I didn't shoot that fast,
Yeah.
And so I was 500. My total setup was over 500 grains.
Right. Yeah. Maybe shooting some aluminums, which were probably a little heavier.
Right.
So I'm sure they killed deer dead.
Dead.
No doubt about it.
Yep. Paws in the air.
They were any less dead than they are now with your fancy equipment? Or
Nope.
Were they just
Well, no, let's not. We're not even going. We could stay up all night talking about that all that stuff. We'll just leave that, listeners. You can banter that around all you want on social media. That's for sure. But so that you get the setup, then you get the strings. Are you twisting your own strings or just buying strings?
No. Yeah. Nope. I make the strings. I make the string silencers. It's the whole show. I'm not sure there's anything more I could do as far as this business is concerned.
Grow the trees.
I could grow my own wood. Yeah, that's about it. So yeah, I built the strings and silencers and set the bows up and sew up a bow stock and ship them out. I'm the shipping guy too. Surprise.
Surprise.
Surprise. I'm the shipping guy as well.
Oh, jeez. I'm going to take a glass of water. When you think about all this, even as big as archery is, and there's still a lot of guys out there that are traditional archers. I know Colorado Bow Hunters Association is a huge proponent of the traditional archers because that's where it all started. And you don't need to know the history lesson, but when you think of it, the thing I know about traditional archery, you have to, it's a 20-yard. You're shooting 30 yards. You're Fred Hill or somebody. He might have shot 40 yards or 50 yards with traditional, but basically you're 30 yards and in, however you do it. People kill deer every year at 10 yards. So that's a lot of stealth. Now, what's the longest shot and the closest shot? So you get two answers: one, longest shot; two, closest shot that you've killed a deer with.
I've shot two that were probably pretty close to the same. They were right around like 31, 32. And then I've definitely killed a few that were more like at 6 yards on the ground. Okay? So those will be my final answer: 6 and 32.
On the ground. No, let's insert that. Let's camp out on that. So you're not up in the air. You're on the ground.
When I shot I hunt a lot out of a tree stand now, but I went on a ground hunting kick for a few years and killed a few deer off the ground.
Yeah.
So it's fun. I always say I'm going to do it, and then it's kind of hard to give up that nice lone wolf, like where you can see so good and see everything coming, and then I end up kind of talking myself out of it.
But 6 yards that's not real much far away type stuff.
It's not very far away. No, he knew I was there.
He knew you were there. It was a buck, not a doe.
Yeah, I was the biggest buck I killed at that point. But he knew it was there a little bit. It was too late. Like I was kind of at full draw and dropping the string, and he gave me the old eyeball. So I suppose he just felt my breath on him. I guess it was.
Yeah, I heard your eyes blink.
Yeah, I heard my eyes blinking or something, but it was too late, unfortunately.
Well, tell me about how that happened, because very few people will ever kill a deer at 6 yards.
So this was when I was dead set on shooting deer on the ground. I had wood arrows. I was going all in. I had a flannel shirt. I was going to hunt off the ground like it was. I was doing the full traditional experience, and so I had hunted off the ground about a month. I believe I shot this deer on like November 6th, if I had to guess. Hadn't had a lot of close encounters. I was set up on a marsh, basically just there was just a little high spot, between the marsh and a little bit of brush, kind of a little funnel. And when I trimmed out the bush in the morning in the dark, thought I was a little further from the trail than 6 yards, but I sat there all day, and I think that was the only deer I seen, and I think I shot him at like 11:30. So I just sat there till 11:30, scared to move, holding my bow pretty much halfway ready. He came in, and within 8 seconds, it was over. Worked out pretty slick.
So you were in a marsh.
I was in a marsh.
Was it wet on your butt?
Nope, I was like, I was on, I call it a funnel. Basically, we'll say there was a marsh to the north and the south, and then there was, just a little high spot kind of running between them, just like a little dry ridge that had some brush and, kind of some small trees on it. So I was set on that, and then the deer was coming, on that high spot with the marsh to the north and south. So little funnel area.
So you had the wind, obviously, in your favor.
Yep, you bet.
You had red plaid camo on.
It was gray, but yeah, I had gray and black plaid.
And you had all the scent deodorant that you needed.
I think I probably still used scent soap at that time. Yeah, I was probably scent free and plaid. I think I had full pants on also. I was really into it. It was a good get up.
Did you have rubber boots on, I hope?
I think it was cold. I was worried that I was gonna get too cold in just my plaid shirt. I think I had my pack boots on. Like it was pretty chilly that morning.
But they're rubber based. They're rubber bottom.
They were
pack boots.
Right. They were pretty traditional. They were like some Pharrell, so like they were pretty traditional looking. They were not very cool.
Yeah, but they're warm.
They were. So I was about to give up on it. Turns out I realized personally, if I'm ground hunting, you can't see anything. I could see 15 yards. Like deer would be in range by the time you can see them. So like I felt like I had to sit there, more or less fingers on the string, bow, basically ready to go. Turns out it's some kind of like intense, like mentally, physically draining stuff. First is what I found, but I'm just super ready, I guess, because I'm on the ground. So
were you sitting in a chair? Were you sitting in a chair?
Yep, I had a little stool that I was crouched over on. So easy peasy, I guess. Just sit there and don't move.
Yeah, but you still had a shooting lane, and he was still directly in front of you, or was he a little quartering away? Did you let him walk by you?
I seen him. I seen him probably at about, say 30 yards, and he was coming right down that little funnel that I was sitting in. So basically, I was already had the bow up, knocked up, ready to go, and I had a shooting lane to both sides of a little shrubby tree. So basically, the plan was, whether they were coming or going, you would see him draw when he went behind the tree, and then shoot him on the other side. So that's what happened. He hit the other side and heard my eyes blinking, I guess. I think he went nice. Couldn't have put it in a better spot. Double lunger, went probably 40 yards, and that was that. There on out, it was all good times, I guess. Getting the buddies and going to look for him. So.
A lot of work. Did he get into the swamp?
Yeah, just a little ways. Not real bad. I suppose when they go 40 yards, they can't get too far.
Right.
But yeah, he did. We found him in the water a little bit, half underwater. So it was pretty cool. that was a big deal. I was pretty pumped up at that point. Like, it was a really big day for me.
Yeah, that would be a big day for anybody to be that close. I shared a story. I was in a down a tree that had blown over, and I just climbed up in there, and I was just sitting up in there, and went back to the roots, and just perfect. And the trail went exactly underneath me, and a doe literally, was underneath me. And
Right.
like I said before, that's how I know cougars they just drop. They're silent. They just pounce and it's all over. I mean,
Yeah.
it was, and it shows you can do that, but one, you have to be patient. Two,
Absolutely.
definitely got to play the wind. And three, you have to be where the deer are going to come, because it is definitely a close encounter.
Right.
And your nerves have to be good. I mean, you have to be so rock solid that deer, draw, release. I mean, deer
Right.
pull back, anchor point, release. I mean, it happens quicker than I just said it.
Oh, yeah, it does. And I think that was kind of what I was trying to say. I think another thing that to go with what you were saying that you need to be doing is like your movement. Like, you need to be very conscious of your movement. You can't stand up and turn around and get your bow ready and shoot them when they're that close, or hunting on the ground like that. You pretty much have to be ready to pounce, like you said, just pounce at the drop of a hat. So
Yeah, that's it. No, tell people again how they get a hold of you.
I have a website, bigstickarchery.com. Also, Instagram and Facebook is both just Big Stick Archery. And my email address is bob@bigstickarchery.com. So it's pretty easy peasy if you Google Big Stick Archery. Hopefully you find one or the other. Find something that works for you.
And how many bows can you put out a year?
I do not build very many. It's a very personal experience. I think I built almost 50 last year.
One a week?
Huh?
That's one a week. 2 weeks off for good behavior.
Right. I mean, that's not. I think I built 40, like 45 last, 40 and change, something like that. So the goal was 50. So it doesn't sound too bad, but there's a lot of other guys in the business that a lot more than that. But I'm not worried about what they're doing.
No, you're really not. Folks,
No.
Whitetail Rendezvous is all about deer hunting, and there's so much that goes into deer hunting. That's why I wanted Bob on the show, because here's a guy that just loves life, and he's building bows that people will go out with his equipment, and they will harvest, they will kill, they will miss, and they will otherwise enjoy the hunt and live the hunt. And that's we're shifting over to the second part. And, Bob's going to talk about the hunting adventure. Early on, I asked Bob, I said, well, what are the three things you're passionate about hunting? And he kind of hemmed and hawed and didn't know how to unpack that. And a lot of people don't, because if you really think about, well, I love to eat venison. It's a great meal. And that's a good conversation. When people say, why do you hunt? Well, have you ever had a great tenderloin wrapped in bacon with maybe some sauteed onions and some fresh greens and new potatoes and a nice glass of Merlot? Have you ever had that type of meal? No. Well, why don't you come over to my house and I'll fix it up for you? That sounds pretty good.
You got me going. Sure.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. Or the people, there's other people that say, I haven't killed a deer in a long time, but I wouldn't ever give up deer hunting. What's up with that? And because they just love being there at the crack of dawn, or when the day's done. Two magic times. I mean, you want to see a magic time in the woods. It's when the woods wake up and the woods go to sleep. So with that background, let's talk about your adventure, the adventure of the hunt.
Yeah. So I that's kind of what it is for me, I guess. I think I kind of mentioned maybe like the umbrella topic, like kind of the adventure. Originally I hunted around home a lot, but now I do not hunt by the house. Basically, I drive a few hours, hunt, and I guess that just ups the adventure factor. It's pretty boring hills, flat land around north central Iowa where I live. So, I mean, even just going over to eastern Iowa, there's some bluffs, and it's a lot more of an adventure. And, you camp out, for a couple of days, and it's just a lot more exciting. It's bigger. It's a bigger wood. You're not hunting on your little, little farm lot or something that, a nice guy down the street lets you hunt that's an acre and a half or whatnot. So I think the place is a lot of it. Just being in a big wildernessy woods. I don't know. I like the adventure. I want to walk up hills. I want to suffer a little bit, not a lot. I want to suffer a little bit. Really feel like I worked for it. I guess it's stuff that other guys wouldn't want to do. I guess kind of part of it now that I think about that. Anything you got to say about that?
Well, yeah, because I know the Bluff County country. I went to school in La Crosse, and I shot some deer along the Mississippi River. That's for darn sure. And those bluffs are steep. The hard thing is, okay, how do you figure out where the heck they're able to come through? Because the food's up top or down below. Well, down below is the railroad tracks, and then you get the river for the most part.
Right.
There's some crop. Most of the crops are up top, and you think about that, and let's talk about scouting. Let's talk about hunting Bluff County, and how do you go about doing that?
Okay. So I've admittedly kind of stopped studying whitetails, which probably sounds bad. I guess I feel like, and it happens with a lot of stuff, just like with the bow building. You read everything you can find, and you read it, and you then you start rereading stuff. So I kind of just chalk it up as, I just need to get, more experience at this point. Like, I'm not going to be able to read anymore and learn anything else that way. I'm just going to have to spend time doing it. But the last information that I read on whitetails, and the last forum online that I was ever really a part of, was thehuntingbeast.com. A fellow by the name of Dan Infalt kind of started that. He had a couple of DVDs. Hunting Hill Country Bucks was the one. He also had a Marsh Bucks video. But that they talk a lot about finding buck beds, hunting buck bedding areas, doe bedding areas, where you would find bedding areas in like hill country, like we're talking about in the bluff country there along the Mississippi. And it's kind of not fun. Like it's really like it's a hard video to watch. It's 3 or 4 hours long, and it's hard to take in all the information. Like, it is not a hunting video. That forum is just full of information.
What's the name of that forum again?
Thehuntingbeast.com.
Thehuntingbeast.com.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I don't know. Have you ever heard of Dan Infalt?
Yeah, I've heard of him.
Wisconsin guy.
Yeah, and I've heard of him. I've never met him, but I need to have him on my show because he's. I just talked to another guy. He solely bought into his strategies, and he hunts now for beds. That's all he's looking for. Forget ruts, scrapes, anything. He's just hunting for beds.
Yeah. So I'm not necessarily on the, like, Dan and a lot of guys on this forum are specifically hunting specific bucks in their beds. Like, they're scouting for the beds, and then they're saying, hey, I think that buck's in that bed today. I will go kill that buck specifically. I basically just looked at it and took in all the information about reading maps and where deer would bed and feed, and basically just kind of used that to figure out where I could hunt for more of like a deer movement type of thing, as opposed to hunting a specific buck or whatnot. So basically in the rut, I'm looking to hunt doe bedding areas, so pinch points between doe bedding areas where a buck would cruise and be looking for does. So a lot of my research now is just map study. You just look on a map and figure out which way the wind's going to be blowing that day, and then I can usually whittle down. Well, even though I hunt the entire county of Alameda, given a certain wind direction, I would probably have 3 places that I would sit in the whole county. Like, it's just a lot of public land there, but for some reason it works for me. So I basically just study maps, use the current wind direction, look where I would go based off of that wind direction, and it whittles down a lot of country.
So you are DIY public land?
Yes, sir. I think I've shot a couple on some private ground, I guess, but pretty much vastly public land, especially in the last 10 or 12 years. So I guess I grew up hunting on a great aunt and uncle farm, but I haven't been there for about 10 years, I would say. So
now, is the buck off your shoulder? Is that a public land or a private land buck?
Yeah, that's a public land buck from northeast Iowa.
Oh, it looks pretty small. I don't know. Maybe it's just
he's pretty small. I mean, I shot a couple, like two bigger than him, I think. Well, 2, but no, he's a really nice buck. And then he kind of set off I went on a hot streak there. I was reading the forums and studying the Dan Infalt stuff a lot, starting to get into that. Or maybe that was the year after. But I killed that buck the day after my dad killed his first buck in Wisconsin or in Iowa. He drew his tag from Wisconsin, came over, did a bunch of scouting, shot his deer 13 minutes into the first day or something like that.
Oh, no.
It was a ridiculous amount of time, 10 minutes, and he had passed a couple in that amount of time.
Good scouting.
The next day, he walked me into the stand. I had never been to this public lease yet. So he walked me in, dropped me off, and I shot that deer at 9 o'clock, and that was our week-long rut vacation. You know, we killed 2 deer out of the same tree in 2 days, 2 mornings. So
you are hanging lone wolves, or you're you're using hang on. Is that correct?
Yep. He runs a little bit more of I think he had a couple of different sets hung, like pre-hung. I do all hang and bang. That's kind of a huntingbeast.com thing. So I guess
I call it run and gun.
Run and gun, yeah, same thing. Hang and bang, run and gun, same deal. So basically, I don't know. I might leave a stand and hunt it the next day once a year. Not very often. Mostly I'm hanging the lone wolf, taking it down every sit. Just going with that, going for the surprise factor. It seems to work for me. I don't know.
No,
it's definitely more work.
The thing about I used to use screw-in steps, and then I did get sticks, 3 sticks, so I'm 9 feet, I'm 10 feet up, and then my stand, and I don't hang stands anymore. But when I did that, I would have per 40 acres, maybe 2, maybe 3 stands, just maybe per 40 acres. And then on the family farm that I've been invited to hunt for years and years, I mean, there's stands all over the place. Every place you think there should be a stand, there is.
Yeah, you gotta like that.
No, and I wish that I wish they would take them. Every once a year we take all the stands down, just take them all down, and then go in with chainsaws and take all the wooden stands that have been there since Uncle Bert hung it in 1950. But there is one stand at Taj Mahal. It's 20 feet up in the air, and they build it on telephone poles.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, it's got a stove. I mean, you could spend the whole 9-day season. It's got a pulley system. It's got a walk-up system. It's got a latrine down below.
It sounds amazing.
Oh, it is. I mean, and it's on. I mean, you could literally stay in that the whole 9-day system. You just walk downstairs and go to the latrine, and then you pull all your food up, and there's the wood stove. And the kids' jobs was to make sure that the Taj Mahal was fueled. There's plenty of wood for the old guys to go out and sit. 360-degree, opening windows. It was and a carpet floor with couches and the whole thing. I mean, it was that big, and that'll be there forever. So that's the only one I wouldn't want to ever take down.
No, that's definitely a permanent guy.
Yeah,
sure.
That's not going to be any place. But all the other stands, and this is my 2 cents. If you're leaving stands up on the family farm forever and ever, just do yourself a favor, take every stand down and rethink your farm.
Sure.
And I don't care if Uncle Buck has killed a deer every single year for the last 30 years from the concussion stand. That's fine.
Yeah, and it happens. I mean, there's some spots that are just that good that long. But
change.
Take them down, check your stands, make sure your straps are good, safety wise anyway. At least check them. But
yeah, and just give it a rest. I know some of the stands I have been able to. I wanted to move them for 2 years, and I haven't been able to. And people go, "You're moving that stand?" I go, "Yeah, I'm moving that stand. You can't move that stand." I said, "I'm going to move that stand because I've seen enough bucks to go by there that the buck I want to shoot isn't going there." I mean, I literally had young deer walk around completely 360 that stand with me sitting in it.
Yeah, they figure that stuff out for sure.
No, they do.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of why I do it, I guess, primarily. Aside from I don't want people stealing my lone wolf stand.
Well, no. In some places you have to public land, you have to take it down.
Yep. Some places you have to take it down, but it seems like that first sit's usually the best one anyway. So if you run and gun, every sit is the best sit. So I guess that's a big reason I like that. little bit too, especially in November during the rut and whatnot. Where if they just don't know you're there, they don't expect you to be there, so you might get away with kind of a sloppy inch. Obviously, if you know hunted that same set 15 times that season already, they're probably going to be a little more savvy to you being there. Probably just walk around, but I don't know.
I'm laughing. I hunted one farm in Buffalo County, and I could park the truck right on the road, never turn on my headlamp, and walk right to my stand, just by feeling the trail. That's how bad. I mean, and that's through the woods. That's just not walking down a logging trail.
Yeah. So hey, I bet you sat there once or twice. I don't know. I've never hunted a lot of the same spots. I don't know. I guess I would hang stands and then sit in them once, or I would hang stands and have to take them down, and I never even sat in them once. So I don't know. That's just kind of the direction I went, I guess. So the running and gunning worked for me. A lot of my buddies want to sit in the same stand until they have it memorized, like you just said. They don't need a flashlight. They can just, they feel the sticks on the ground and they remember where they're at. They've walked it 75 times.
Yeah. No, and that's on private land. There's only so many places you can really have those stands.
That is a fact. I think that's part of the reason I like hunting public so much. And I don't put any effort into finding private, and I haven't. I like being able to roam around and check stuff out.
Yeah.
Kind of go do that thing. It gets a little boring when I had to hunt 20 acres or 40 acres. I like seeing stuff. It's the adventure, Bruce. That's what I was saying. I like to go and see the ground.
Oh my goodness, Mr. Smith, this has been an absolute joy, and we're just going to wrap it up. So, let's just give one tip right now about deer hunting, public land, your way. The Bob Smith way. What's your tip you want to leave the listeners with?
Oh boy, hunt where there's big deer. That's it. It's not a coincidence I go to Northeast Iowa. I could very well hunt around my house or anything like that, but I shot more big deer over in Eastern Iowa because there's more big deer there. There's more deer there. I would say even if you're not wanting to hunt big deer, hunt where there are more deer. It's going to make it a whole lot easier if you have a more target-rich environment, whatever the target is that you're looking for. It's like anything else. It's way easier to catch a fish if there's some fish in the pond. So I guess that would be the one overall tip, is try to find the place with the most critters that you can find that you're looking for.
Well, it's been a joy, Bob, and I look forward to seeing you at Iowa Deer Classic. Do you go down to that?
Yeah, I've been down there a handful of times. So
okay.
I definitely need to get back down there. So maybe I'll run into you. Sounds like
yeah.
You're gonna have you said. So
yeah, I'm gonna work on a couple of things and get some stuff rolled up for that for next year. So with that, on behalf of almost 250,000 listeners of Whitetail Rendezvous, you're going to be guest number 537, whatever. I shouldn't say it. I shouldn't say it like that, but it's been such a joy, and it's the adventure. I do this, it's the adventure, and we're getting to the point that people are starting to notice and recognize us, and I look forward to being able to hunt more because I'll be getting, I'll be getting sponsored and those type of things.
That was my whole plan. I just wanted to have a job that I could have time to go hunt, basically. So now I'm kind of the own boss, so I can just say, I'm going to go hunt bears next week. So I'm going to go hunt bears for a couple of weeks next week. It's going to be awesome.
You going to Canada, or where are you going?
I'm going to Idaho. I've been out there the last 2 years. But
spot and stalk.
Spot and stalk. I'm going to really put down the stakes and going to try to stick it out for a couple of weeks and hopefully get something figured out. So
glass.
Glass, and then do some more, and then I don't know. Either way, it's going to be awesome. I'm not going to be working. I'm going to be hanging out in the mountains.
I know.
What else?
Well, let me know how that turns out. Take some pictures.
Yeah, no, sure. So that's all I got. You got anything else?
No, that's all. I'm good.
Perfect. Well, you have a good evening.
You too.
Thanks for having me.
Next up is Christopher James. CJ hails from Calgary, Alberta, Canada, and he loves fishing the Bow River. But more than that, he's an overcomer. He's a young man that had quite a future in professional football and or let's go back to the college ranks, and then something happened as a senior in high school, and what he found out is that the wilderness, the woods, the outdoors brought him peace, brought him tranquility, and taught him lessons that he couldn't have learned anyplace else about overcoming adversity in his own life, and he's sharing that with others on Be a Lion Outdoors. So I'm really excited to have CJ on as a guest, and you're going to learn a lot from this guy, and it's just a privilege to have him as a guest on Whitetail Rendezvous.
Thanks for joining us. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for another episode of Whitetail Rendezvous, where you can listen and learn from the experts so you can be more successful on your next hunt. Until next time, listen, learn, and succeed.